All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. Keep your views coming at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. There's a very interesting turn of events here on the conversation. Now we're talking about the public education system. And Janet, I was coming to you on this. You've heard what Honorable Sossion has to say, and what Ndoro also mentioned earlier on. They were expecting 7 billion shillings from government. Yes. They've not received it. 343 private schools have closed, employing more than 158,000 teachers.
Okay. No, and I want to fundamentally disagree with the Honorable Sossion, because I know for sure there are parents in this country who have not taken their children to private schools out of choice. The notion that people take their children to private schools because they have money is neither here nor there. Show me a facility that I want to take my child to. I want to challenge today, if all those private schools closed, would the government of Kenya today, like in Nairobi, for example, absorb all those children? And the answer is no. So we have come to a conclusion that really these are partners. So it is from that perspective that we are saying these are our partners. Because if they surely shut down, and we have seen it, I have just told you that at ECD we are overwhelmed because we received 30,000 children. We don't know what to do with them because anyway, in fact, the figure that we had, we were doing about 27,000. But now 30,000 children have come back. What do you do with that? So it is in your interest as you try. I agree absolutely that it is the responsibility of government to provide a free and compulsory basic education. Quality. As at now, when we are speaking, can the government of Kenya be able to do that for all school-going children of this republic? And the answer is no. That is not going to happen next year. It is not going to happen in the next 5 years. We had better tell ourselves the truth for the sake of protecting and securing the life and the future of the children of Kenya. Okay. That is a background that we are saying the private providers have been partners. Let us not look at it from the point of view that they are making a profit. They could be that as it may, they could be making a profit. But show me an institution. Why are the parents of Kenya being denied choice? That whatever government has provided, you must go there. Whether children are sitting down, I can tell you of a school, Mollem Primary School, one class, 120 children. Some of them are sitting at the floor. If you are a parent, is that where you would take your child? And the answer is no. You would probably look for an alternative provider. Yeah. You'd rather go without food or compromise other things in the household. So those are the sacrifices.
But people say that is the failure of the government.
It is, and that's why, the same government has come to an admission that we are overwhelmed. Probably as it is now, we are not able to take care of all the school-going children as it is now. Remember, we cannot
have all the resources.
You know, we cannot postpone. We cannot postpone the future of a child and say, no, we are working on a 5-year program. Since the private schools have shut or since there are no other opportunities, you sit home. Yeah. In 5 years, we shall come. You cannot postpone.
But you collect all the taxes.
And that is why we are saying it is a good gesture for me that government has admitted that private providers are partners. And so, what can we be able to do? And remember, there is also a bargain. As you've heard Honorable Ndoro saying, is that the negotiation is that we support you, but you also subsidize, you know, to the parents. So I think the discussion is along those lines. Okay. And remember, it is a commitment that the government of Kenya has made to provide to every child. It is not to some children, it is to every child. So the government of Kenya at the back of its mind knows that the facilities I have are for probably 2 million children. But we have 3 million children. So where is this 1 million children going to go? Because it is my responsibility. So I think it is in that line, and I would really like to soften the heart of Sossion to look at it in that respect, and to separate this from all these discussions that are going on with the DFID, the World Bank, because this is Kenya, this is our country, and our realities are so different from the realities of the North.
This conversation is the realities of many years of ineptitude and neglect of education.
So do we kill children?
And in 2002, the historic moment in this country, when Kibaki promised free education, everybody condemned him and said, yes, it's not possible to provide free education in this country. But look at the milestones we've covered. And as teachers, we have seen globally, many countries have done this. Singapore has done it, and it's an economy that is linked to us. And many countries in the East and elsewhere, they've invested in education. And here, we cannot dilly-dally and talk in terms of business. The biggest mistake we have in this country is bringing in flagship businesses to education and using children to make money. That is wrong, fundamentally. And when you talk about ECD in this country, and I'll come to the city, the previous county governments of Nairobi collected millions of shillings in terms of taxes and levies and embezzled them. They did not develop the ECDs. And this is where the private actors came in. They saw a business opportunity out of government failure. This government failure is what invites the business opportunity, that somebody is looking for personal money to come and help and play the responsibility of the state. That is not the objective of independence. And I think, and you started very well with this conversation about the school's infrastructure, congestion in classrooms. Why do you have congestions? Are we lacking resources? And now that the ECD bill has been enacted and this function has been given to the county government, we should now see more public quality ECD centers in the city. And that is why we need to go.
Absolve yourself
we
from
must
all this
bite the bullet. And you see, competition for resources.
1 second. You cannot absolve yourself completely because you are also part of the education committee and in the legislature. What are you doing about it? Is this something you're talking about?
I joined the legislature in 2017. And
you cannot back past it.
But that doesn't stop us from speaking the truth.
You also have to take responsibility, right?
Let us all accept as a country that we failed. And this is now a clear turning point. If Kibaki was able to show us a way that we can finance education for every child, and remember that Mzee Kimani Maruge, the old man who had to come back to school only to learn to read the Bible, it tells us, it opens our eyes. That's an indicator of failures of over the years, of restrictions, of exclusions, of inequity. We want equity. And the only way we can get equity in education globally, and I'm speaking from the professional perspective, is to ensure that there is accessible, quality public schools where there are no congestions, quality classrooms, adequately recruited and trained teachers. The 158,000 teachers who have been recruited to private schools can as well be recruited and employed properly within the public schools. That is possible. Let us not admit weaknesses that will run away.
I wish there were a switch.
Where are we taking the billions?
There existed a switch.
Where are we taking the billions of taxpayers if we cannot start by taking care of our children? That is where we should begin.
I'd like to hear you.
And that's the pride of a country.
Let me bring, Dora, I'll come to you in just a bit. Let me bring in Sami. What are your thoughts on this? Is it a collective failure on the public education system? Have we completely neglected it over the years that now it's just we are playing catch-up?
While the arguments on both sides, it would be unfair to say that, because personally I'm 100% the product of the public education system in Kenya, from primary to PhD. Having said that, I think again, as I said, the arguments on both sides. There is, of course, need to invest in schools. And I say this now as a Kenyan, especially in the urban centers. We don't seem to have the same problem of congestion in rural setups in many of the places. But the urban centers, and Dr. Ouko here, maybe what happened to when they, I used to hear when they would be subdividing. Now, here I'm a layman on this. Every subdivisions would require there to be a school, sometimes a church, a health center. If that was happening, we obviously would be looking for children to put in schools. They
grabbed and sold all the land. They grabbed and sold all the land.
Let them finish.
The truth.
So I think obviously there is work to be done on infrastructure, especially in urban centers for schools. I say this because in the rural setup where I grew up, and I don't know what happens really, as I said, I'm not an expert here, I noticed that from the primary school now there is a secondary school by the same name. We don't seem to have that progression in urban centers, despite our huge numbers.
Okay. And Doro, you wanted to jump in on this?
Yes, I wanted to say something about support to the private sector. And I want to say that we have never, as a private sector, said that the government has to shift its responsibility to the private sector of providing access to quality education for our children in the country. What we have said is that the government needs to support the private sector to be able to improve on the quality of education in our country. When you look at the sessional paper, we have the sessional paper of number 1 of 2005, sessional paper number 1 of 2019. It talks about the government appreciating the fact that alone it cannot be able to provide quality education to all the Kenyan children, but it is trying to do that. In the process, it invited the private sector to come in and support it, expand access to quality education. What we are saying is that it is not that the government should stop its responsibility of expanding the public sector education in order to support the private sector. We are not saying that. We are saying the government should continuously improve on the infrastructure, employ more teachers in the public sector. But at the same time as they do that, they should also give an enabling environment to the private sector to be able to provide access to education. And the kind of support that we have always asked the government to give the private sector is not grants. We have said a low interest credit facility to support, because even these institutions, they are Kenyan businesses. We have also said, so someone has also mentioned about when the President Kibaki came in. In fact, President Kibaki did a very good policy decision to provide free and compulsory basic education. And in doing that, during that time in 2002, we had about 5,000 private schools. But at this point in time, we have over 13,000 private schools. So it doesn't mean that when President Kibaki came in with the issue of free primary education, it affected the private sector. No, it improved the provision of both the public and the private sector. So what we are saying is that we should appreciate the fact that the private sector is a complementary partner, and the government will always need the private schools in order to expand access to quality education.
Okay. Janet, you wanted to jump in on?
Yeah, and absolutely. I think he has made it very clear that nobody is really arguing about the place of government in the provision of quality public education for that matter. But there is an appreciation, and I thank God, because this admission is coming from government, that just the same way government gives incentives to other businesses, why aren't education enterprises considered as businesses that also make a contribution to the economy? And apart from making a contribution to the economy, socially, these investors are making another contribution. So it is in that context, and the whole understanding, as Ndoro has said, that really if the environment became so hostile for all private providers of basic education, and that they shut down, there would be a crisis in this country. I would want Sosion to tell me no, because we are speaking today. We are not speaking, there are medium-term plans and long-term plans and all that, but we are speaking today. And what COVID has taught us is such that all businesses across board, whether you're in education, whether you're in health, whether you're in production, all of them have been affected. And there have been conversations about how lives of businesses can be revived, how grants can be given. So why do we in education sector look at these people as profiteers and feel so bad about them that when we're mentioning a government grant, we want to say, no, they will suffocate the public? I think that is not the discussion here. The discussion is that can we look at them also as businesses? Above that, let's look at them as partners in the provision of this social service, but also critical partners that make a huge contribution to the economy in the terms that, apart from them being taxpayers, they are employers. You've had the data. In terms of the number of teachers they employ, in terms of the non-teaching staff that these people employ. So I would want to look at it in that context and totally devolve it, absolutely, from the statutes that we have about the place of government in the provision. It is squarely the responsibility of government to provide basic education. But we are speaking as at today. What is our environment as a country? And especially speaking so passionately about this because I'm the city county executive committee member for education, and I know where we are sitting with 205 ordinary 205 public primary schools. We cannot sit here and claim that this government can be able to provide basic education for all school-going children in this city. Therefore, it is incumbent on us as government to try and reach out to our friends, reach out to our partners, because what is the goal? The goal is making sure every child, remember, when we leave these tables, when we leave the macro environment, it comes down to every child. So the decisions we make today, we might talk so much about what the basic education and the constitution say, but at the end of the day, there is a child there who has gone to Jehovah Jireh Primary School, and they have been told by the teacher, rightly so, that there is no opportunity for you. So where do you go? Okay. You again now go back to go back home. Your mom and dad, anauza skuma, anauza nini. Can you get a private school? And the one that you could get has been shut down because the provider can no longer pay rent because of COVID. Yeah. It is that child that I am talking about now.
All right. So Sion Rashid Mwagi says, so Sion, majority of your clients who are the teachers have their children in private schools.
That's an arguable argument. Where citizens choose where to take children is a different issue. But here what we are arguing about is the responsibility of the state and government. And we have looked at the history of education in this country. Right after independence, we had the best public school system. Yeah. That even there were no boarding primary schools. All primary schools were day public, and district commissioners, government officers would send their children to the nearest school. And then over time, situations changed, and there have been a lot of reform policies in the education sector, particularly talk of Kamunge, of cost sharing, and that affected the quality of delivery of quality education in public schools. And I think the argument here is quality. And when Kibaki pronounced access by all children, the immediate challenge we faced in 2003 was quality, congestion in public schools, and there was that apathy and runaway by the middle-class parents to the private schools, and that is what needs to be contained. And Trevor, Kenya is a developing economy. We are yet to get to the middle-income bracket in due time. And globally, the third world countries are victims of private education system. And the IMF and World Bank is pushing developing countries to really embrace privatization. And these are zones of enterprises calculated to be worth over 7 trillion shillings. So it's a business frontier. That's a fact from statistics and research. And this is what we have been fighting and combating globally. But as countries move to middle income and to the fast economies, the states really do well. Governments do well in terms of paying. And I think it will be a defeatist to begin living in the slavery of thinking about private actors as an economy. What we learned from Kibaki is that it can work. And even in 2021, with the lessons of COVID, we can do better. Janet, in Nairobi, you can provide public schools for all ECD's learners with the resources that you have, with the Nairobi Metropolitan Service moving billions and billions. If you can move billions to build roads and install other infrastructure, then you can move billions to build quality ECD schools. So we are talking about going into the future. What are we doing for the country? Are we still living in the past? Are we going to glorify the periods and eras of corruption where land was grabbed all over the city and nothing was created and mapped out for creation of schools? You go to Kibera, you'll hardly even have an acre of land to build schools. But you see, in a master plan of planning for any city, there must be provision of such. What did we do? We grabbed and sold all the land. You go to City Hall, look at the cartels that have been there in terms of land grabbing, stealing resources, and everything else. So are we going to glorify stealing? It is time this stealing stops. What we collect as revenue from the citizens, we are demanding a simple thing. Build enough schools, public schools, employ enough teachers. I don't think we're asking too much. We are saying, yes, we can. We have resources. Why can't we stop corruption, save this money? Why can't we recover the land that was stolen through corruption and grabbing and reconfigure schools? We can do it. Lessons from COVID tells us that we should plan for every child, not some children. Plan for every child. The child from the rich family and the child from the poor family, from all the households, so that all children are equal. We are talking about equity in terms of opportunities and access. And the more we talk of those businesses That is a big mistake. Let us do BPP in other areas, but not in the critical and essential social services. And I think there's been a big mistake with Jubilee government from 2013. A lot of flagship businesses in the education sector. You cannot do business in the education sector. You can only invest in the provision of services. Look at the laptops. We talked about it. Laptop consumes 70 billion. 70 billion. How much can 70 billion do in terms of infrastructure? And what was supplied is only 1 million substandard tablets, which are not working. Teachers are not trained. But we were told of a big thing. You see, sometimes you speak about this, people say, we are attacking government. The Bible says, speak here the truth, and the truth will set you free. We have enough resources in this country, but we are not directing them correctly and rightly. Janet, now you have an opportunity. By the end of your term, we want to see quality public ECDE schools. And what is wrong if we structure it and say, by the year 2030, the Nairobi Metropolitan Service government shall be transporting all the children from their homes to schools at the basic education level through their own structured arrangement. We have seen it in the US, even in the traffic law, traffic rules. If a school bus is stopping at a home to drop a child, all the vehicles will stop. And that is how seriously they treat children. Why can't we do this in this country and plan for every child, not some children? As a country, let us plan for every child within the public coffers and the public taxes. That is a responsibility of the state. So don't tell us about, oh, these are friends, oh, in the session. No.
What I like is that
we have a trajectory. Let's go.
That's what I like, that both of you are in the system and then you have this contest. What would it take for actually that to happen? You're the CEC now, so you have some clout and you have some power on that.
And when we were off, we began by saying that sometimes when you're that side, you have all these castles that you want to build in the air, but when you sit here, for ground between friends, and when you come face to face, these people that are being called private providers, a lot of people think that they are these rich people because somebody coming from corridors of parliament, when you tell them about private providers in Nairobi, is probably thinking Riara, is probably thinking, these big people that you see on the road. No. In my context, I am coming from Kibra, and I'm looking at that non-formal school. I want to take you back to when a school collapsed in Kibra. No. It was in Riruta. And when the school collapsed, the parents were saying, I prefer to bring my child here because there's a public school there that, but they prefer to take their child here. So let us also not suffocate the place of choice, suffocate the place of choice in where the parents, and I see Sosion, because those are the debates and the discussions that, because now government has a responsibility to provide basic education, therefore, every Kenyan parent must take their child to those facilities, whether or not they meet the threshold and the quality the parents would probably desire their children to take their children to. That is where we are. We are saying, government, take seriously your responsibility of providing basic education, which we are doing. But at the same time, the truth of the matter is, and I have told Sosion, the crisis of collapsing the private sector in education. And I want to look at it. I refuse the politicization of the private sector in education, because they play a role. And I think citizens would agree with me, the people employed in that sector, we would want to look at it from that perspective, and not from the perspective that the private schools are competing. In any case, I admire the competition, because sometimes you go to a very small private institution, but when you see the order, when you see the manner of doing things, when you see, you admire and you say, wow, why wouldn't a big government enterprise in the place of a public primary school be run this way? So the place of competition is really even very healthy. And I think these debates were there even when we were talking about grouping or classifying children when they sit their Kenya Certificate of Primary Education. Let us not panic, let us not fear. The thing is, we are doing our best that we can, but we have come to the realization that these people are critical partners, because as we are currently, I agree with Sosion, there have been so many mistakes that have happened. There has been a lot of corruption. But look here, there is no button that I have that I can press and stop it right now. I wish I had, I could. But thinking about the many
children... Are you saying we should abet it?
No.
We should allow it to continue?
That is not.
Let her explain.
That is not. That is not.
Yeah.
But
because that is where we disagree.
The thing is, we will not, you know, we will not sit in forums. We will not sit in forums and talk about corruption until cows come home. We are not going to do that. We are going to say, yes, as people ran away and took resources, there is a generation here, before we sort out our mess, there is a generation that needs to be provided for an education. What decisions, in that context, what decisions are we making about that particular child?
Okay.
But we will not sit here and have forums and say the way we want to stop corruption, the way we want to do this. We have all had a desire in this country to stop corruption. We have not stopped it.
Okay.
So we want to make decisions in our context.
Okay.
What works for us and not for us as adults. Everything government could do for me, did for me when I was very young. Right now, I think we are sorted. But we are now talking about that child that has got no ability, that has got no forum, that doesn't know that it is because of corruption that my mother cannot be able to take me to a particular school. But they're taking me here where, you know, the flexibilities that we are talking about, and that is what we are using. The flexibilities that we see in the management of some of these small schools is such as this one, Honorable Sosi. And I will tell you that instead of you bringing 3,000 shillings every month, the discussions there are, baba yako akipata 100 analeta, baba yako, those are the discussions that are happening at that slum level.
Yeah.
And that is what we are saying. Those kinds of institutions really need to be supported, because in the absence of that, take those children to Kibra and tell me whether Olympic Primary School will take all those children. And the answer is no.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to take a quick break now, but not really a break. Let's see what your feedback is. There's a lot of it coming through. Before I take your final closing remarks on this, let's bring them up. If you can bring them behind me, it would be great so that we see them clearly. What do we see there? Kaka Bramzi says, as a teacher, social distancing wasn't achieved 100% because of inadequate infrastructure. Learning under trees was not logic to schools in urban setup. Next term, we have an advantage of having empty classrooms, that is Standard 8 and Form 4. Let's open, okay? Njika Felix says, school closures are likely to have worsened the education inequalities, jeopardizing the attainment of sustainable development goal. And the country have a duty to ensure that a temporary break in schooling does not become a permanent one. Okay? Engineer Lazaro says the school environment is the best place to keep children safe under tight guidelines of COVID-19 protocol. Government should make sure all schools and colleges have clean running water. Okay? Mushangi Karioki says it's important for children to go back to school since we need to heal the curriculum. Otherwise, we shall be pulled backwards. Okay. Jacob Abere says education is fundamental to our children from ECD up to highest level, but before opening, let Education and Health Ministry vaccinate teachers and teaching staffs so as to reduce the transmission chain. All right. All right, let's get closing remarks here, starting from Peter Ndoro. What is your closing remarks? Where do we go from here? The school calendar, you've all agreed that it should be reopened on 10th of May without any delays, but what needs to be put in place?
Thank you very much, Trevor. I want to say that for us in the private sector, we would urge everyone involved in the basic education to ensure that there is a vaccine. Our teachers are getting vaccinated. We educate them on the importance of the vaccine, and we also educate the general public on the importance of obeying the basic protocols in as far as COVID-19 protection is concerned, because this is the only surest way that we can guarantee our children continue with their education when they reopen on the 10th of May.
All right. Sosian?
Yes, I agree very strongly, and I urge all teachers, you must be vaccinated before schools reopen. Okay. If you're out there and you'll come to school before taking the vaccination, then you are not helping the process of fighting and kicking this pandemic out of the learning institutions. That is one. Two, Kenya should draw lessons from this COVID and work towards the SDG goal of towards equitable quality and lifelong education for all. And so there is need to redirect affirmatively more resources to the public learning institutions to improve the infrastructure and programs in schools. Okay. And therefore, there is also need to allow county governments to play a central role in the building of infrastructure in all basic education institutions, not only ECDs. And if we go that direction, then I'm sure we'll be mitigating the challenges drawn from COVID-19, and we'll head into a safer learning program that will be able to achieve the global targets by the year 2030.
All right, Janet?
Oh, great. I think as we look towards opening, it's important to just say that we all should not let our guard down. Let's not think to mesoea, COVID, because it could probably have disastrous effect. We still encourage our teachers and our learners and parents to still continue to be as strict as they were during the first time that they were in school. As we all look towards probably a situation where the government of Kenya will be able to vaccinate all her citizens, and also trying to really do things to prolong ourselves, because there are more developments, coming around the globe, and I know this will be behind us, and insist more that government should really step on the lessons that they have learned and invest a lot more in the education sector.
Okay. Sami, what is your central message this morning?
Thank you, Trevor. Interesting discussion it has been. Vaccines save lives. Long before COVID, and over the past 100 years, life expectancy has improved by between 15 and 25 years globally. This has been largely attributed to the intervention by vaccines. Indeed, they've been very successful in combating infectious diseases, and vaccines are only second to the provision of clean drinking water as far as dealing with infectious diseases is concerned. Vaccines are safe. If your turn comes to get immunized, please do. You not only safeguard yourself, your family, those you love, and your colleagues. It is an honorable thing that when you have an opportunity to get immunized, you do it without delay.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Janet Mudhoni Ouko, CEC Education, right here in Nairobi. Honorable Wilson Sosion, nominated MP and NATSEC Gen. Peter Ndoro, CEO, Private Schools Association, and Sami Ndungu, head of Sanofi Pasteur. You said it's Pasteur or Pasteur?
Yes, Pasteur.
Pasteur
is fine, yes.
Sanofi Pasteur, Eastern Africa, and medical biotechnologies. Thank you so much for making time. We're taking a quick break now. When we come back, Ibra, where are we going next? All right, we're going to work out that's coming up with Dennis Otieno in just a bit, right? See you in a bit.